So this week, the third episode of Boys Planet started off with a bit of a hitch. Now, never mind that the broadcasting time was pushed to 8:50 Korean Standard Time. When the actual broadcasting time came, a good many in the global audience, they missed out on much of the first 10 minutes due to the technical and production side issues of a crew member simply not pressing the start button on the global stream. And what would you know? The part many global viewers didn't see, it just so happened to include the remaining highlighted trainees from the Signal song test from last week. But I actually did manage to catch what happened on the Korean-only section of the broadcast, and so you will now benefit from that, so let's summarize that for you. Continuing where they left off last week, trainees like Park Han-bin managed to test well and maintain their all-star ranking. And as more all-stars continued to keep their rank, pressure increased on struggling trainees like Kim Kyu-vin and Han Yu-jin. Man Jung-hyun, a 3-star, did so well in testing that he actually went up to an all-star rank. Lee Ye-dam, who previously did a solo dance in star-level testing and ranked all-star, also succeeded in keeping his rank. Now, during the test, Keita did so well that Zhang Hao, watching, gained sudden confidence and believed that G Group could defeat K Group. When Kim Kyu-vin's turn actually came up, he prayed to himself that he would not have to perform in front of Dance Master Mihawk, but of course as soon as he looked up, he saw who his judge would be. And up to this point, Kim Kyu-vin and Han Yu-jin had the worst time in Signal Song training. Planet Masters were suggesting that they didn't deserve their star rankings, and reality came at them fast because they just couldn't perform in the moment either. Now when Kim Kyu-vin was doing his Signal Song test, his singing was breathy, and he was just not doing that well vocally. And this caused him to drop to a 3-star level. And the judges even commented that, he had the potential, but just missed the mark today. Ji Yeon-seo, who was another Yuhua K, was up next. And just like Kyu-vin, he ran out of breath and was very nervous. Mihawk was also wondering now how he pulled off being an all-star, and he actually regretted being so deceived by the whole Yuhua K group performance. And yet another Yuhua K member, Yu Sung-eun, also basically fell apart on his Signal Song test. Now, at this point, we're well past this being a pattern. We're even well past suspecting that maybe they just need a better way to test and assess trainees in the future, which they do. And so the judges basically suggested now that Yuhua K group's performance is going to be like some kind of living curse. Han Yu-jin bore the brunt of this realization early on in Signal Song training, and the show let it be known that he had become ill during the process. Now, I don't know if this was a sickness brought on by stress, or pressure, or food poisoning, but what I do know is that his fellow team members sacrificed time and energy to keep him in the game during this crucial time. Keeping that in mind, I can maybe give the rest of Yuhua K a little flex over the possibility that it could have badly affected their testing performance, so maybe the other guys could have done better. But during the Signal Song test for Yujin, his singing was nerve-wracked, it was breathy. Eventually, it was just Swiss cheese, just like on day 1 of Metro training, when his singing couldn't even be heard. Now, watching on the screen, his team members showed support by saying that he did a good job. He overcame his sickness. But let's be real. He had the same problem before he was sick. After being assessed, he ended up dropping to 3rd rank along with the rest of the Yuhua K team, and obviously he wore this visage of devastation on his face. And with that, it was the end of the Signal Song tests. About this point now, the global audience was refreshing the stream, and they were now getting a live feed. I mean, it's the end of testing, but the Planet Masters would still have a sort of surprise in store for the trainees. And they started calling out a number of trainees, and then suddenly it turns out it wasn't a positive surprise. They were demoting them by star level. I think a whole bunch of 1s went to 0s or something like that. They didn't show any of this. They just kind of summarized it with fundamentally the same amount of information that I just gave you. Of course, it wasn't all bad news. Park Gun-wook's tentative scoring, which I personally guessed would stay at a 3 after Sung Han-bin's performance, it actualized into an all-star rank for him, so Park Gun-wook became an all-star. And Sek Matthew was also promoted to an all-star. And I'm kind of surprised about that because Lip J's comments were that his dancing was maybe just not that good, or there was issues with it. But I think we can be happy for these guys. They're definitely front runners for the top 9, in my opinion. So by now, a change of setting occurs, and we're subjected to a shortish segment about the Signal song and how it did in rehearsal and recording. The trainees, they got to familiarize themselves with the stage, and, some of them, they were timid about stepping on the higher levels, but they really just still wanted to do it and get a feel for it. Some kind of like did the same thing that they did with the top 9 chairs, and they stepped on that step, and then they suddenly came back feeling kind of like, I don't know if they were ashamed to do it, but it was kind of funny just to see that kind of timidity. You wouldn't see that anywhere else, I don't think. Since the Signal song was already revealed before the first show aired, I won't waste time recapping the drama surrounding who gets the killing part. We all know it was K Group's Sung Han Bin and all the K Group who got the highlighted role. During filming, the judges expressed that they really weren't used to seeing these boys in their final uniforms and how now they looked like a debut group, and they looked proud, and they also praised even the zero level performers who, despite not even being considered stage worthy, they still put in an effort to help them stand out from the floor. So later we end up back at the dormitory with the boys having no homework on the books and having just filmed their debut stage of the Signal song. Obviously, they were on a high after this, and we got to see the trainees really enjoy their time with each other doing word games, spa care, Korean language studies with Keita, singing, snacking, exercise, and body groping.
You are hentai? You're hentai.
Totally normal, perfectly regular guy occurrences, by the way. The dorm time eventually ended in an anxious mood with everyone talking about how long they had been training for and how hard they've been fighting for, or how desperate they were for their dream. On D-Day, the first mission announcement, trainees walked into the hall and noticed that there were numbers on the floor and platforms in addition to some numbers having names attached. And that's when Star Master Hwang Min Hyun showed up for the first time in front of the trainees. This is where things got interesting, because fan cam results were about to be factored into the show for the first time now. And I commented in the comment section of my last video that there seemed to be neglect for the top 9 fan cam trainees who are a member of G Group. The benefit of the fan cam rankings were that these boys would all become leaders who could pick their own groups, with priority going to the higher rankings. These were the top 9 in both K Group and G Group. According to my pre-rankings, K Group has a skill gap between 1 and 4, while G Group has a range of skill between 2 and 4, with more 4s. The average ranking for both groups is about 25 out of 36, or 2.8 stars. Factoring in upgrades from the 2 tests in rankings, G Group could move up by 5 stars total. K Group's top 9s, they had as many upgrades as downgrades, which kind of cancelled the bonuses out. Actually, I feel like the popularity here makes no sense, and I figure many of these trainees, they must have a pre-existing fan base, because, based on their time attacks and their test performances, I really can't even account for 30% of these guys being in the top 9. I know that I didn't see them on the show, and so who else could have seen them on the show? They probably came from someplace else. Revealing the details of the first mission, the theme was once again K versus G, and 7 songs would be performed head-to-head by teams from each group. Winners will be decided by in-person audience voting, and every member who was a part of the winning group would get 100,000 points. In addition, if K Group or G Group has the most battle winners, each member of that group would get an additional 10,000 points. There was also the benefit of being able to perform an M Countdown and getting to put out solo PR content. I'm guessing these points will be summed up through the broadcast of the show. Otherwise, there would really be no point in handing the points out. For this mission, the 7 songs were picked from million-selling K-pop groups, and the songs were as follows: 17's Very Nice, EXO's Love Me Right, BTS's Danger, NCT Dream's Hot Sauce, 101's Burn It Up, Stray Kids' Backdoor, and Blackpink's Kill This Love, a girl group song. Up to this point, 3 trainees left the show for health reasons, so Mnet decided that those groups would automatically get the Blackpink song if they came up short in members. And if a leader wanted to short himself a member or two, it would be a valid strategy for getting to choose the Blackpink song before anyone else. So with that, let's get into the team picking. I've given this team codename Bunny Squad. Lee Ho-taek was the first to pick. This was interesting because he chose to balance the team like someone experienced with the roles being laid out. But I guess his choices were kind of based on his own observation of skills. And, while I liked what his motivations were, I don't agree with all the selections. This group he formed was pre-ranked at a 2.1 out of 4, and it kind of goes up a little bit if you factor in the recent performances of the picks in the last 2 episodes, but I think his team still feels average. Sung Han Bin gives that team the striking appeal it needs, so in my opinion he needs to be front and center. If they fail to do well, I suspect it will be on Lee Ho-taek to take the fall for it. Now recently I said that Lee Ho-taek performed indulgently, and I hope he doesn't do it again. What that means is, instead of trying to impress people with your range, you please them with your performance and your interpretation of the song that, it reaches people emotionally and it makes them, their ears perk up in genuine interest, but not in, the shock. Lee Yidam is also a good dancer, but he hasn't been highlighted much. Now, on the opposite side of that is Kim Gyu-vin, who got highlighted a lot, but the performance was lacking lately. The rest of the members, they weren't really talked about much in the show, but, they kind of just needed rappers to fill out the roles. This is my explanation for it. Lee Ho-taek noticed them, and I just feel like he still could have made 3 stronger selections. But I understand that, these trainees on the show, they're sitting in the audience of their own episode sometimes, and they don't have convenient packages out there to help them familiarize themselves with the trainees. So I kind of understand that the one time he got to sit down and watch these trainees was during the first episode star level tests. So I kind of understand where he's coming from. Now the next team is one I codenamed Turtle Squad with Dan Hong Hai. It's a G group team. Came out of nowhere for me, actually. I barely remember this guy, but he chose some of the pretty strong foundational members for his team. 3 of those guys are from the top 9 fan cams. The rest have proven themselves in various skill sets. My pre-ranking for this group is a 2.4, but it could just easily be higher. Now, I don't think he chose this group purely based on skill, actually. And there's some sort of kind of a salon swatch team here or something. They're like Jay's harem. There's something strange going on here. Now, Jay has basically proven to me that he is actually team material, and therefore, he holds no flaws in my eyes at this point. Wumuti, he's also demonstrated skills from the time attack even back then, and also through preview episodes and side content. Now, Haruto, he surprised me in the Star Level test. He became a proven rapper, and his overall performance has been good lately. I did not expect this much from him since the time attacks, to be honest. And the rest, they're capable as dancers and vocals. I've noticed that Anthony is popular, and I'm assuming some of these people have supporters that are coming along with them, but the show mainly seems to be using him right now for face reactions. Haru is also basically being fully ignored by the show, but I sussed out from the time attack videos that he's actually decently talented. They really couldn't give him the benefit of having, 3 seconds to show he was picked, really, Mnet. Overall, this is a well-grounded group that basically needs to polish out maybe 2 to 3 members who have lower level skills on 1 or 2 skills, and just pray that no mistakes are made. And I think most groups would kill to only have to deal with the problem of having to practice, really. Also, visually speaking, they all stand out, so I have high hopes for this group. The next selected team is Team Sexy Squad. This is Kim Ji-woon's team, and is generally well selected from a sincerity standpoint, actually. My pre-ranking of this group is a 3.1 out of 4, which is the highest I have for all the teams that were selected in this episode. Now, this score may actually be slightly lower given recent developments on the show. For example, Han Yujin. But, Ji-woon, while he's not the best, he's actually stable with good visuals. And if he's visible on stage, it has the power to draw attention and kind of like even stain the memory. Whereas Han Yu-jin, he's also a visual with kind of like minor dance, but he's just not doing so well in the show so far. His voter support is massive though, and so, if he can perform well and not choke, it's a net benefit. Ji Yeon-seo probably makes the least sense to me here, but his singing is otherwise good, and, he seems down to earth. Kim Min-sung and Kim Han-jian are the strongest soldiers, to me. They're no-nonsense supporting performers that won't let you down. And they also demonstrate a low-risk, high-reward burst that can pay off with highlighted moments from both of them. Kim Tae-rae, I didn't really see much in him before, but he's demonstrably a good vocalist. Yoon Jong-woo is a rock with a good dance and a calm demeanor, and I feel like he enhances Ji-woong by having complementary energy. Out of all the teams, I believe that this team that we're seeing now is probably the most debut ready. My only real cause for concern is Yoojin, but I look at Jun-hyun and Min-sung, and I think those guys, maybe they have the energy to keep the group on top. And Ji-woong also seems kind of like a good leader. The next team is Team Secret Squad. Hiroto built a team that can fill every role here, though some members are kinda low-skilled in areas. This group is actually pre-ranked at a 2.3 out of 4, and I'm not really even sure why I keep saying the pre-ranking score, because it seems like they all averaged out to around 2.3 or 2.4, except for a few which were lower. But, while I generally think that Hiroto has strength here, there's also a glaring liability in the team. Well, the main draw for me is seeing Hiroto and Wen Ye-chen get a chance to shine, as they've been quite suppressed by the process. I do believe they're idol material. Some other members are also people I marked as tentatively low, but, under my notes, they'd actually shoot up high if they showed skills, and Yuki is one of those. Now, the part where I said there was a glaring liability, it's Uju, because he has always been my lowest ranked members, and I keep saying that, and I'm mildly amused because, he trained a year in dance, and he's also like the zero-star group instructor and teacher, but when it comes to performing on his own, he chokes, and he doesn't even go up. He couldn't even go up while teaching all the 0 stars, where one of his 0 stars went up as well. I just do not have a lot of faith in Uju, honestly. In Time Attack, I talked about Ma Xinjiang having the skill capability of an all-rounder, but because he's kind of low in each skill, I feel like it doesn't really count as all-rounder. Maybe he's just a center visual. Now, Kong, on the other hand, is being pushed hard by the show, and I feel like Kong is strong skill-wise, but maybe he's lacking in areas that may make certain people uninterested in what he has to offer, but sometimes that's just an unfortunate reality. Other than that, Ichika, he was fairly highly rated for me in the Time Attack, and I have him down as a vocalist, but he's being ignored by the show as well. And so that's basically the Secret Squad. And then moving on to the next squad, I nicknamed this one Team Mono Squad, which is Lee Dae-il. He picked people he was grateful to. You ever meet that one person who's just incredibly accident prone, but also kind of aloof and not at all careful? So they just end up doing stuff that's ridiculous. Well, if those people want to do you a favor out of gratefulness, I think that you should have the right to decline their favor. And that's how I feel about Lee Dae-il. Now, luckily for him, he has a well-rounded mixed bag of vocalists, dancers, and rappers, and the average ranking of this group is slightly over average at 2.4, but it should be lower due to Lee Dae-il's dropping performance on the show. Honestly, I hope he can pull it off, and I kind of live for spontaneous victories that have no reason to work out, and so, they have decent leadership in someone like Lee Seung-hwan, and, not that his help earlier prevented Dae-il from dropping 2 stars in level testing, but I do think it's funny that Dae-il wasted a slot in choosing Lim Jun-seo again, who partnered with him in the star level test, and he knows that he's just as inexperienced as he is, and they are both clearly in need of training. Jun Woo-suk had some false rumor about him hitting JYP for no reason at all, but he can do okay, I think. And I don't think his rapping is that good, but his dancing is fine. And Jung I-chan, he can sing okay. Basically, this team is terribly mono-themed in appearance, and they should be emphasizing that in their uniforms, I think. Or find a way to clash with it, I don't know. But, they need to put a good visual trainee out front, or find some way to look high energy. I'm going to guess that with the exception of Lita and Lim Jun Seo as unknowns, the rest of the group can be stable. The next is Team Buffy Squad. Ricky's team is a bit weird. Their best chance is probably to perform visually and narratively. It appears to be well-rounded on the lower end of skill, but on the sincerity side, it's like this combo of people who are vampires and their victims. In my notes from Time Attack videos, Christian is potentially narcissistic, Fenjun Lan may be crazy, Nakam Den has slightly off deer in the headlights vibes, and Shang Shuabo may be totally normal. Ricky is considered steady, but he kind of I feel like he has one look, and I don't know if he's going to survive dyeing his hair or doing his makeup differently. Chen Zhen Yu is charismatic, and then Brian is just possibly boring, which means that he's kind of hiding something, and maybe he's evil in some way. I don't know. But if you look at their eyebrows, you can maybe tell who is going to be more narcissistic and who is a victim. It's odd, but real life does tend to work like this as well. Narcissists just happen to be attracted to their victims early on, and then their victims play into the intermittent reinforcement abuse cycles without even being aware of it. Actually, either side is not really aware of it. It's just something that happens. And it's a weird thing to talk about, but I feel like it should be talked about because I feel like this dynamic, it can produce good works if both sides want something from each other. In this case, they want to both do well. And what this means performance-wise is that the victims tend to be the only ones mentally capable of bending to conform to the needs of the group. Narcissists are notorious for not being aware or being able to change. Now the next team is Team Sussy Squad. Cha Woon Ki's team seems to be mostly visual and have uncertain skills laid out. This pre-ranking that I put for this group is 1.7, so it's one of the lower ones. And it looks to me like there's visibly well-known strugglers amongst them. So, I can't imagine why they picked them unless the list was running short. Or, maybe they'd like a bit of controversy behind the scenes for airtime. I really don't know what Jang Ji-ho offers, as I've seen no demonstration of it. Though he and Seo Won had their face expressions used as the sort of Sussy Squad in past episodes as well. I've been told Woon Ki has debuted before and he quit the group. In my Time Attack, I suggested that he might be someone who's living in his head, and I kind of used the term fairy-like, and I also stipulated that that's not a gay thing or anything. I really mean that someone like him and someone like Sana, they're kind of maybe people who live in their heads a little bit. I don't really know what to expect from this lot of guys, but I am actually a fan of Mingyu, though I think that he'll tragically continue to struggle with somehow meeting the standard that is required for dancing and singing. But his work ethic is actually very good, so, I am actually rooting for him to overcome my expectations. And I like some of the members here. I like Seo Won, and I like Sung Eun. And there's a foundation here in Sung Eun, who was in Yuhua, and Man Jang Han, who just rose by a star level. The next team is Team Host Club Squad, and Yutaka managed to have a team that is actually well-rounded. Though his supporting players may be slightly less skilled in the areas that they have skill. They can fill their unit list properly, though, and the group pre-ranks at 2.4 out of 4. I have Yutaka down as a very good dancer and singer, and he's in my top 9, but the show has him at a 0 level, and I like to think there's something else going on there. Maybe pressure from the language, or timidity, or culture shock. I do believe Yutaka, though, will do well, and I have faith in him. This group has 4 strong visuals, meaning together they can create a cheerleader effect if they wanted. And besides training to be stable, I think that they can pull off a unique vibe. They look like characters from a reverse harem manga, to be honest. And my main concern about this group is whether they can do vocals. I really only have 2 trainees here who have demonstrated okay vocals. Dancing is something I think will not be much of a problem for them. So, if they buckle down and work together on a song that is light on vocals, they can definitely deliver a good performance here. The next team is Team Carry Squad. Lee Dong-gun's team would be stable if I didn't know Bak Do-ha was in it. He's performed very poorly now, and even in my pre-rankings, I have him listed purely as visual. Now, Choi Woo-jin is another one we haven't seen much of. and I have him as a pure visual as well, but an S rank nonetheless. The average pre-ranking of this team is actually pretty good, and the skill set is not so much lacking as it is that I think the best of them will have to train and manage the worst of them. And at this point, there's bound to be confidence issues. The core three members, Lee Donggun, Park Han-bin, and Park Hyun-bin, I think those two will have to work hard to elevate the two more visual members. This is Team Buffet Squad. ICE's team, I feel like, is a little unbalanced. It's basically full of dancer rappers, and then there's two members who look very much alike but didn't demonstrate skill to me yet. Similar to Ricky's team, I feel like there's a zombie victims coupling here, but the potential victims seem stronger, probably due to being confident in concrete dance and rap abilities. Or maybe all the good victims were pre-selected by Ricky. So why does Nice look like a minion? Did you guys notice that? Not the Pixar kind, but kind of like the original kind. Chen Lang needs to be a team player who can help with dance. I rated him really highly, but Lang's position in my top 9 was kind of made redundant by the existence of Jay. And so part of me wondered about Chen Lang's flaws in the same way I thought about Jay's flaws, and are they going to be like too center focused and not assisting their team or helping their team in whatever way or being easygoing? That's what my concern is, and I vibed that from both Chen Lang and Jay. Although I think in the end I had more faith in Jay, just because he was like more outgoing and he was highlighted in the show. We get to see him perform. I didn't see much from Chen Lang really. Lin Shi Yuan could be a problem. I get the sense that they aren't steady, and I think he might be a rapper, but I didn't really feel it. Kai Shin basically ran a resume in Time Attack, so I don't know who he is. And I don't remember him from episodes either, if he was even shown. Now, Osuke is the second most vibrant person next to Ollie. And these guys, I feel like they need to bring this group to life. If this group would succeed, really it's going to be because they can sing stably. And, the team, they have a weird vibe. So I feel like they need to play into that. Ollie is more vocal than anyone, so following his lead should make it kind of like more hip-hop and also a little bit more kind of like macabre. And, under that heading, I believe that they can win. Hip-hop takes guts and leaderships, though, and so if these guys aren't going to go in confidently with swagger, I just don't think they'll have a good result by just going through the motions and performing a song without adding anything unique to it. The average pre-rank of this team is decent, but due to a lack of role fulfillment, I would say I just hope they can talk sing in unison at a minimum. So the next team is Team B Squad. Choi Seung-hoon's team seems to be leftovers. Now, altogether, they rank lowly in terms of most of their offerings, which is kind of like vocal skill and minor visuals in one or two of the members at best. I don't think Seung-hoon would have chosen this team if he had a chance, but when you think about it, he himself, with his kind of slightly cute boy visuals, he was basically sidelined by 2 or 3 other trainees in this show with cute boy visuals. Jun Ho Young has one of the most side character looks ever, and I just feel like he's just the weird friend of the main protagonist. Jung Ho Jin smiles a lot, which is an asset to him because in the photo he's unrecognizable and he kind of looks weird, but in video on the show he actually looks happy and nice. And so if this positive attitude can raise hopes in a group, and I hope it does, let it be. Jung Se-yeon has a problem with kind of like this resting bitch face, and I feel like he has this perpetual face that makes you wonder if he's even paying attention. It's just that I feel like he needs to smile more, or if he was more lively, he could be like a puppy maybe. Park Gwon-young has unfortunate visuals in my opinion. I said this in Time Attack, but the eyes and the circles around them maybe a little bit deep set, so it looks like he doesn't get sleep. And I just feel like he needs to do something with makeup to make him pop more, and maybe be less dark. And I imagine he and Ho Young would actually make good friends, because they both have like kind of odd look, and I feel like they'd get along well together. Park Min-suk in my notes says that he seems average and forgettable, and that he was also cocky. I don't even remember what happened during the Time Attack video, but seeing as he became a leftover, I must have caught on to something. If these guys want to win, they should find a way to cover up the odd visuals with makeup, or put on theatrics, or wear partial masks, and then also practice like hell so they give a stable performance, and maybe that performance will have more story in it. I don't mean to be down on these guys, but I just don't see what the reason for them winning is unless they went against another group of leftovers. The next team is Team Scales Squad. Chen Yu gang has a very low pre-ranking due to poor demonstration of skills. And yeah, I guess they are the leftovers. And luckily, yeah, they do have someone to fill every role. And while I'm not too confident they can pull it off, I am certain they will look interesting doing it. And they've got a few misfits in here that can stand out. And so long as they play that up, they may produce a more theatrical and entertaining show. Chen Yu Gang, he was almost cool in time attack mode until I noticed that I think he took off his jacket, and then he needed something to wear to give himself the feel of a big person, like Park Gun-wook or something. But unfortunately, the jacket was misleading. Dong Dong looks like a sad or emo person, and I feel he should really cheer up and become enthusiastic about this opportunity. In my time attack notes, my vibe said this guy doesn't seem hungry for this. And maybe I was right even all the way back then. Itsuki hits me with the wrong vibes, and I don't like it. Takuto has the right vibes. I like him, and it's unfortunate that he's here. I rated him lowly, but he's young and he hasn't learned to be present yet. He also has the deer in the headlights look and kind of like this blank slate vibe here. But I mean, should I check off this bingo card for a youngling with ADD? I don't know. Maybe it's too early. Wan Yan Hong has an awkward feeling about him, and I feel it's not memorable. He and Yu Gang may be the main dancers in the group, though, so maybe seeing more of them. Yang Jun has a decent tone, but I feel like he sings in a head voice. It's also kind of stiff. And, this is from my time attack notes, but I don't recognize any other singer in this group. Now, Yuto has decent energy, but I don't know if it's directed well. I want to see him and Takuto elevate the mood of this group. Basically, this team suffers from people who either have too much motivation and then the people who have too little. And, both need to have the same level of hunger for this competition. And then they also need to direct that energy in an effective way, not just kind of like splatter it out there. Now, the next team is Team Gun Squad. Lee Hwan Hee was basically goaded into picking Jellyfish trainees to do a song. Park Gun-wook was the mastermind. Thing is, I feel like that's a dumb move. I don't think that's smart at all. In my time attack reviews, there was something I didn't like about Lee Hwan Hee, and if it's vague like that, as I have it written down, it must be his vibe. Maybe he didn't seem confident. He demonstrated semi-harsh vocals, and I think that's it. Now, Han Yu-seop, I feel like he was good, with okay vocals. Hong Kyun-hee, he was rated low for me, with passable rap. Jang Yeo-jun had mostly okay singing, with an oddness to him. But Park Gun-wook was an S-plus class, with all-rounding skills for me from the start, and I think he can probably debut here, but it's not likely he can take his whole group with him again. I actually find it strange that no one added Gun-wook to their team before this. That he must have very visibly failed too often that people look down on him in the rest of Jellyfish, or maybe he's just being too intimidating, kind of like Fu Yaning, because of his strength and build, or maybe he was like cocky a few times. But this group was a bad idea, and I don't think they can win. You can't elevate a mediocre group above a good group with just bravado, or even like your idea of strategy. You can elevate that group with actual practice and training. And so I feel like the only way they could win is by choosing a song or opponent that has noticeably less skills than them, which I feel like there are a lot of. The next team is Team Squad Squad. Keita's group has heavy hitters in the real-time dance department, and these guys delivered on the regular individually. The vocals are also generally stable. Variety here. So if they can keep all the eyes on the group as a well-oiled machine, I feel like they should do well. I don't really need to talk about them individually because the actual full roster, except for Min, has basically been praised for dance. It's funny that Keita constantly flies under my radar, and I still think he lacks something ineffable. But he had the sense to add two centers to this group with strong visuals, so I don't know. Maybe he knows more from a different standpoint in the thinking and planning department. But, this group, it reminds me of Astro for some reason. I think it's just a balance of characters. But the main worrying part, I feel like, is just the vocals. I really don't know anything about Min. Not that the team lacks vocals, but I feel like not knowing who this guy is, I don't know if he's going to choke. But if you do choke, it impacts the whole group. And so I hope he does well, and I hope the team here does well. Now we get to the song choices. After everything gets sorted out, the teams, they had a chance to pick a song. And those that picked the same song would also practice in the same room. At this point, they started showing behind-the-scenes struggles in practice. But first, I think I'm going to discuss these pair-ups and also do some predictions about the projected winners before highlighting anything worth mentioning in the practice sessions. So the first song is EXO, Love Me Right. It's Lee Ho-taek versus Dang Hon Hai. Voting due to disagreement, Lee Ho-taek's song choice won out with the support of the more better ranking members. This song is vocal heavy, so you can see how it may be beneficial to Lee Ho-taek, whereas the other song, Burn It Up, is probably more dance-centric. Honestly, it surprised me that they wanted to do a hard dance song, given Lee Ho-taek's experience level here. Not experience level, but just his recent performance. And it seems like they were under a delusion they could pull it off and impress people. Dan Hong Hai's team chose the same song, and when it became apparent that their opponent would be Lee Ho-taek, the G Group side fell to their knees at the thought of the uphill battle that they would have to face. At face value, Lee Ho-taek and Sung Han-bin are perceivably the scary guys, both due to their perception of their talent and the voting popularity. Honestly, the G Group seemed to be worried about this matchup behind the scenes before they even knew that this team would come up against them. Now for me, my pre-ranking scores predict Dang Hong Hai's team having more appeal and skill. And for my assessment, I agree with that score. It just seems to me that Hong Hai's team looks debut ready, whereas Lee Ho-taek's team may be half forgettable. In terms of power vocals, Lee Ho-taek has been indulgent, as previously mentioned, while Jay has an untouchable tone that is pleasing to listen to and good texture. Haruto, as a rapper, is also stronger than Lee Jong-hyun, and Lee Ho-taek's better dancers are kind of offset by his own dance ability. So for this reason, I think G Group wins it. The next song is 17's Very Cute. It's Cha Woon-ki versus Hiroto. Now, Cha Woon-ki's Sussy Squad showed up intimidating Hiroto's pretty boys party. Hiroto said that their team looked balanced and had all-stars. Now, given what we know who is more skilled and who has more fighting spirit because of the last two episodes, but my pre-ranking scores told a different story. It said Hiroto's team had half a star more appeal than the opposition, and looking at the composition, I'm definitely more interested in this lineup. So Hiroto to me is like the Gwen Maya of this season, and he makes an excellent center. And his team seems to have more dancers and vocals, whereas my limited information said Woon-ki's team was mostly visuals. I legitimately believed Hiroto could win, but actually it's a moot point now since we know that Mnet showed the winner right away and K Group actually beat G Group here. So the pre-assessment was wrong, I guess. And in my real-time performance ranking, I actually did give 0.1 point advantage to Woon-ki's team. So that should let you know that I am sincerely rating these guys in real time. I do score them fairly, despite my favoritism. The next song is 101, Burn It Up. It's Choi Sung-han versus Yutaka. Now, when the leftovers from K-Group formed up around Choi Sung-han, they basically didn't have a choice regarding the song. This is probably the least pre-ranked group in all of Boys Planet. At a 1.3 with generally low skill rating, I don't really expect them to be able to perform this hard dance song, which also requires a lot of charisma. Now, going up against G Group's Yutaka, I have Yutaka's team pre-ranked with a higher score of 2.4, almost a full star above, and basically on level with every other group. My pre-ranking indicates Yutaka's team will win, and I agree personally. The K Group leftovers don't even have a rapper defined there, but visually speaking, Yutaka's team is just so bright, soft, and pretty, while Sung-han's team seems to be leaning to like Tim Burton. And so if Sung-han wants to win, he really has to flip the concept to dark and kind of lean further into the theatrical to disarm the visuals. Now, all this aside, they still have to perform stably. Now, the next song is Blackpink's Kill This Love girl group song, Lee Hwan-hee versus Keita. Keita's team, they're visibly intimidated by Park An-wook. He has this kind of big build of a school tough guy. It's average by Western standards, I think. But compared to the rest of the, I guess, Asian kids, he looks big. And, he has this roguish charisma about him that also reinforces his image. I feel like maybe he was a little cocky before. Zhang Hao, in particular, believed that they were going to lose whenever he looked at Park An-wook. The pre-ranking also made the same determination, but independently, I disagreed because, we've seen Gunwook and the Jellyfish crew constantly plateau around 3 stars, and it was only recently that Gunwook got all-starred. They're also lacking anyone who specifically does very well on dance on that team, and the singing hasn't been great in the first 2 episodes. The assigned rapper is also kind of not rapping that well. On Keita's team, on the other hand, you have mostly all exceptional dancers, and vocal expertise is unknown, but most have been praised on it by the judges. Min is the only unknown for me, and they've just performed higher in general. And so I go against my pre-ranking here and support Keita's team to win. Mnet spoiled this one too, and so Keita's team does win in the end. And I also gave them a 0.4 lead during my performance ranking, so I guess at that point my rankings are kind of accurate. The next song is BTS Danger, Lee Da-eul versus Chen Yu-gang. In this matchup, Chen Yu-gang is full of the demoralized G group leftovers, and they're pre-ranked for me at a 1.7, whereas Lee Da-eul is at a 2.4. Though honestly, it should be lower seeing Da-eul's performance recently. Generally speaking, Lee Da-eul's team seems to be better equipped with more confident members, and the only possible hiccup is Lee Da-eul himself. On the flip side, G Group has Takuto, and he rose by a level compared to Lee Da-eul, who dropped 2 levels. I don't know if that actually means anything. I don't really even think it's going to be a net benefit to the teams, but definitely Lee Da-eul could be a net loss to the team. Unfortunately for G Group, Da-eul's team has very strong vocals spread out among their team, while Yu-gang's team has less talented vocals. They're also designated as multi-talented in K Group. To survive, I think G Group's leftovers have to switch up the concept and choreo to avoid a head-on comparison with both K Group and BTS. If Yu-gang wants to survive, he needs to get the team doing a different and fun version while breaking up moods of the low-energy trainees. They already have Takuto, so leading into that makes sense. And of course, I think if K Group wants to survive, they really need to get Lee Da-eul up to speed and get him confident again, and also his friend that he brought into the group. The next song is NCT Dream's Hot Sauce. It's Lee Dong-gun versus Nice. These two are the most evenly matched teams there are. My pre-ranking decided on a draw here, and strangely enough, though I leaned into wanting G Group to win because, Hot Sauce is a weird song, and I feel Ollie can help the Misfits in G Group pull off a weird song. Donggun K Group has 2 visual members, 2 strong trainees, and 2 mid-levelers, and unfortunately among the 6, it unfortunately includes Baek Do-ha, who has been doing poorly. Now, I'm not sure if he can get it together in time. I simply just don't have these concerns about Nice's team, so I think G Group can win this. The next song is Stray Kids, Backdoor, Kim Ji-woong versus Ricky. Now tell me you didn't think it was a snicker-worthy thing to see Ji-woong in a group performing a song called Backdoor? Sussy for the Juwasi, anyone? Between Ji-woong and Ricky, we have werewolves versus vampires. And my pre-ranking gives this to Ji-woong's topless werewolves team, and I kind of have to agree. I didn't give out S+, which is a 4-star ranking, to just anybody, but this team particularly has 3 of them, and 2 have proven to be super stable with spontaneous bursts of brilliance. The biggest concern for Ji-woong's team here is Yoojin, but from a voter popularity standpoint, they're both neck and neck, and there is a favoritism advantage, though I don't believe they should use that to win. Yoojin, he's kind of been unstable lately, so hopefully this team can help. I do know that Junghyun has strong motivational powers, and Minsung, as the ultimate supporting member, can probably help there too. Kim Tae-rae, he's also strong vocally. On the flip side, Ricky's trainees have been underperforming. The mostly visible members are Ricky and Christian, and if that didn't convince you that this group is basically just a vampire's den with their enslaved familiars, I really just don't know what will. Ultimately, what tips the scales for me here is I think the sexy factor might just glamour the audience more than vampire magic. So those were my predictions based on these very weird and unconventional ranking criterias. Let's get back to the show to recap some struggle content in the practice rooms before the rehearsal and live performances. In the Blackpink Kill This Love practice room, Matthew struggled with not being able to get the killing part, main vocal, or anything else he tried out for, and I feel like he was too easily swayed by his self-conscious thoughts in comparing himself to others when his strength basically comes from trying honestly and just kind of like, I don't know if he realizes it yet, by the way, but some people can fail upwards, and I feel like he has that talent. He really shouldn't worry about the details, and just smile through it. That's what I was going to finish with. He just has to smile through it. So while earlier Zhang Hao was worried about Park Gun-wook, the K-Group team actually started to realize now that G-Group's team is basically an all-star team, and the Jellyfish guys have mostly been below that level so far. Keita won the killing part, but honestly, I still feel he has an inverted X-Factor in it. It should have gone to Matthew or Zhang Hao. I don't think Keita should ever be front and center in the group. And later, Gunwook would realize that Zihao scares him the most and suggest to his team that, they can't go head to head there and they should change the choreography to something maybe more masculine and powerful to emphasize that. Now, shifting to the 17 very nice practice room, Dong Yeol became K Group's leader. Meanwhile, Hiroto's team couldn't even decide on whether they should have one leader or multiple. It's silly in my opinion. Not everybody needs a credential like leader or participation points, but the final leader needs to have final say in everything. Of course, they did something even more silly and chose Uju as the leader. Now, please, not the one I ranked the lowest in all of Boys Planet. The guy who teaches 0 level trainees, and he can't even personally get up 1 level from 0 in testing. Isn't this guy just clearly coded from a physiognomy standpoint to be an office clerk? So while selecting for vocal parts, Mingyu had a funny moment where, he gave up right away. And, I was wondering why he would even volunteer for the part. Sing Yun ended up getting main vocal, and then Jung Hyun managed to get the sub-vocal part. In G Group, leader Uju wanted Hiroto to take the cute part of the vocal, and I feel like, hey, that's actually a sound decision. But then Kong thought he should do the rapper section instead. And I feel like, from the skill section assignments, the people who do know rap and were aware of do rap, that actually makes sense. But then later, Kong also disagreed with another assignment. And again, I just feel like, sure, you have seniority in star level, but, you already agreed on Uju as leader. So, I feel it's a little underhanded to kind of push and ignore the leader's decision, even if it's Uju. And I mean, Kong should have volunteered for the role if that's what he really wanted. And if he doesn't do it next time, and then he keeps doing the same thing, I mean, I think this guy is he's just afraid. In the BTS Danger practice room, Seunghwan became leader of Daeul's K Group. G Group needed a leader to promote their confidence. After all, they were the leftovers. And so, in the end, Yu Gang reluctantly took the role. He had the highest star level, by the way. Back in Daeul's team, they started doing line distribution. And several vocalists did a decent job at tryouts, while Daeul struggled to sing in his kind of very unique way, actually. It's kind of funny. Yu Gang's group was not doing so well, though, with only 2 rappers and 3 vocals not being that skilled, according to my notes. Yan Jung volunteered for the main vocal, while Yu Gang tried really hard just to get anyone else to volunteer. I can tell that his vocal was not that good from the time attack. But Yang Jun had also been failing in the actual episodes as well. And what Yu Gang may not know is that actually his whole team is actually lacking vocally, and that's why no one is volunteering. It would have been nice for everyone to just do tryouts, and then maybe you'll have a diamond in the rough. But in the end, Yu Gang had no choice but to give it to Yang Jun. And also, if he did continue to just kind of not give it to him, it would have been kind of like a stressful thing for him and look bad on him. Now, honestly, I feel like this was the time to step up, and I could kind of see why this group is leftovers. They refused to fight for it. They all just showed up, and they hoped things would magically fall into place by chance. That, or they're just freeloading on the experience, and, without taking any hard risks, I feel like that's kind of underhanded. They're taking votes away from people by staying if they're not serious about it. In the Stray Kids backdoor practice room, Ji-woong became the leader of this group, and he prompted a killing part audition. Everybody made their case without incident. The highlights on Kim Jin-hyun and Han Yu-jin and Yoon Jong-woo made for a good kind of like 3-way battle. Han Yu-jin, he choked again though, and the part went to Yoon Jong-woo in the end. Yoon Jong-woo couldn't even really believe this, and Ji-woong basically said if Yu-jin was confident, he could have won that part, but I'm not as confident in Yu-jin's ability as everyone else seems to be. In the end, Yu-jin got a leftover part. In G Group, they decided that Nam Kam-nan should be leader, since he's fluent in Korean, but then something kind of weird happens, and, we have Christian and the other members making unilateral decisions and having private discussions about the process, speaking only in Chinese, which kind of shuts Nam Kam-nan out of the conversation. Hold on here while I check off this bingo square for Chinese wannabe leader. This only happened a few times in Girls Planet, so I kind of just had to put it there. You could tell that other trainees caught on to this, but they kind of failed to speak up. We saw Nam Kam-nan fade behind Jay in their performance. But, that happened because there was performance and talent just shines through like that. But in this situation, I feel like it's even more frustrating because you can't even communicate with words. But I feel like his body language did communicate how he was feeling, and there's just like a huge lack of social awareness by the others in the group, and it's frankly discouraging. I'd like to be open-minded here and say that it was evil editing, and I'm not saying that anyone's intending to do harm here, and I don't think I'm out of pocket in saying this, but it doesn't necessarily take intentions to hurt someone. If anyone on that team is legitimately sorry, I feel like now is the time to apologize publicly and prove it was unintentional. Frankly, the right response right now is to come to Nakamden in a very public way and, with sympathy and support and not excusing the situation or even the parties responsible for what happened. Just, showing support for him. It doesn't make a difference to the wounded party for you to say you didn't mean to hurt him. You gotta do reparations when you do damage. That's just the way it works. Even if I hurt someone unintentionally, it would be on me to seek forgiveness or make things right with my actions. But at this point, it may already be too late. Just as the mob can dismiss one person's trouble, another mob could just as easily work in the other direction and cancel the offending person forever or not support them. Now, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying it's a natural thing, as natural as the sun rising, really. But unfortunately, the last scene showed Nakamden crying in the side commentary. I don't think that's going to pan out well for him either. So in the 101 Burn It Up practice room, G Group seemed kind of chill, while K Group was full of kind of the leftover K trainees. K Group, they tried to build their confidence at this point by self-promoting their skills, and Seunghan, who I have ranked the highest, said he felt the least skillful. And he could be right. He may right now just be a cute boy visual who slightly transformed into an emo slob for the past 2 weeks that couldn't do the job he signed up for. Everyone tried to help this guy gather the nerves to just make an attempt at this once-in-a-lifetime chance to try out a stage role. And for some reason, he decided to just be that guy. The guy who just publicly withered toward failure. Hey, I think it's 10 times worse than just going home with a health excuse. At this point, weren't you just staying for the vacation time and then endangering the chance of people who wanted to be there? Isn't it costing you something? Go home and practice if you want this career, or go back to school if you aren't going to give it everything without any regrets. In the NCT Dream Hot Sauce room, with K Group, Baek Do-ha tried to be the leader and got blocked by Park Han-bin, the all-star. Hey, listen, I think I just kind of knocked a guy for not trying. So I'm not about to razz on Do-ha for not having the self-awareness to see his lack of skill and experience doesn't make him ideal for the role of leader. Actually, I'm slightly worried that one day Baek Do-ha will become a corrupt politician. I got mad vibes that this guy wanted participation points more than the team's actual success, which is basically Business Class 101 or Reptilian Brain 101. And I have a bingo card slot for a bad team that ruins a good trainee, but I actually don't have anything for a bad trainee ruining a whole good team. Somebody just let this guy be a TV host so he doesn't ruin a town or something somewhere. In G Group, Osuke was the leader, but he felt he was short and not visible to the team. Yeah, that's kind of what happens when you dance in the background, but not much else is said about Team Buffet Squad. Back in the EXO Love Me Right practice room, they started doing role distribution and tryouts. Lee Yidam got the killing part, and hopefully Mnet edits him like that is the case, and Yidam just becomes more visible. In G Group, Jay originally got the killing part in tryouts, but after seeing Lee Ho-taek get the main vocal, Wumuti got nervous and asked him to switch, and Jay graciously went along with it. That's no-nonsense teamwork is further cementing Jay in my mind as a top 9 contender. Of course, Jay practicing flawlessly started to get on Ho-taek's radar. He appeared tilted, but sometimes you can't be sure. It might be evil editing, but I think he actually started to feel genuine uncertainty after that. And this kind of, I guess this concludes the practice room section of the episode. But yeah, Lee Ho-taek, he looks like uncomfortable sometimes, and then sometimes he seems to genuinely appreciate what the other guy's doing with his voice. This next section shows a little more practice, struggling, rehearsal, and feedback, and then it leads directly into performances. And so this is the final section. On the day of performance, the boys walked out to split groups of Korean and global supporters. It was kind of interesting, and I had to wonder how they got the foreigners there to watch the live performance, or if it was a telestream somewhere and then edited to look seamless. Short clip demonstrated how arm wrestling gave the winner the choice to go first or second in battles. Apparently K Group won all of them. The first battle was between the 17 very nice groups. In a clip with the choreographer, we saw how G Group made a lot of mistakes, didn't move in sync. Ultimately, it was because the team was not working as one behind the scenes. Ajin Zhang said he needed more practice time, but Hiroto, he expressed something about the reality of team choreo needing the whole team to polish as one, rather than hoping several people practicing individually are just gonna somehow come together and just kind of do well. They eventually did clean up their act, with Uju leading the efforts. Actually seemed to pan out. In rehearsal, things improved, and actually even Kong was praised. Now, during the actual performance, Team Secret Squad started with Hiroto being stable. However, Uju would be offsetting it with his choking in real time. I guess those I can't do teach. Luckily for them, Kong's energy revived the drop in score from me and landed the group at a 7.5. Overall, they did okay, but the outfits were kind of weird to me. It actually felt like sabotage. Like, literally, why are they dressed like these French cartoony boat painters? In K Group's time with the choreographer, Mingyu was completely out of breath, and Jung Hyun was struggling with the singing. Behind the scenes, teams seemed to get written feedback from other trainees as well. Jung Hyun, he wanted to change his part, but everyone insisted he endure and figure it out. According to my pre-ranking, nobody who wasn't assigned to something more important was above him in vocals, and so they were right to deny his change. So in the actual performance, Team Sussy Squad, they looked put together, and they had a strong starting score, actually. It went up briefly, but dropped to the same 7.6 in the end, and that was basically because of Jung Hyun's instability, which left them with a 0.1 point ahead of G Group. After the performance, though, they revealed the results right away. Strangely, it showed scoring for predefined roles too, which I don't understand how they even organized that. Like, how does that even work? And why wasn't it just a vote on a performance? Like, who was voting? K Group won overall, but it was unclear how Mnet managed to get a live audience group to rank and score things like sub-vocal, rap, killing part. Like, is there something I don't know here? Is it just fake? I don't know. Is it the judges? As I mentioned before, the Sussy Squad did beat the Secret Squad, but if I'm being real, even though I gave Sussy Squad a higher technical score and I knew there would be winners like pretty much after the end, I was kind of more into Secret Squad's performance. I just feel like there's more X Factor there. The Blackpink Kill This Love teams came up next, and after their intros, that one judge got a bit sussy for the Matussi. In interim checks, G Group did well in practicing, but there was a dilemma with Min feeling not recognized in his minimal role distribution, and this seemed to happen to the sound of a Game of Thrones like theme, so that was kind of funny. And then even Min backstage, she wanted to keep trying, but Zhang Hao, he laid down the law and said, you have to accept this. And he didn't rush him to kind of like go back to work right away. He gave him time to accept it. In rehearsal, they all seemed to be well and came to terms with their roles. In the actual performance, the staging for Team Squad was really nice. Props were set up nicely. It started high for me at 7.8 and went up and landed at 8.6. I could have sworn Zhang Hao was the killing part based on how much they showed him. I was very impressed though, and while I was defying the pre-ranking and saying that they would win earlier, in the end I did see a great performance manifest itself. In the K Group's interim check, they performed a male version, which impressed Lip J, but in individual evaluation, Hwan Hee struggled because he doesn't like dancing alone. Apparently he'd been traumatized at the age of 16 by everyone telling him he couldn't dance. When performing for feedback, everyone continued to confirm his flaws, but later he dedicated himself to improving, and the team rallied behind him. In rehearsal, Hwan Hee did an odd ad-lib, and while he had some kind of throat-related health problem at that point, he seemed hell-bent on it, and it looked like it took everyone by surprise. In the actual performance, Team Gun Squad did better than expected. My only criticisms were the muted color palette of the stage and the size of the trainees. It kind of made the stage feel smaller scale, and there really wasn't much contrast between blue and white lights as there were between red and dim lights that the other group did, so it didn't feel as pro as G Group's showing. Hwan Hee still did the same ad-lib as in rehearsal, but he kind of he managed to pull it off. It was still strained, but he pulled it off. The performance started and ended with an 8.2, with a slight rise during action and slight drop during vocal ad-lib. In the ratings, G Group's Squad won overall. But after the end, Gunwook cried that he could not take his group to victory. By the way, in the end I think I was wrong. I said Gunwook couldn't take a mediocre team up against a team of all-stars, and he couldn't make them better with just bravado and strategy. But he did. They put on a performance that was so good that even the judges said it was up to preference of which you liked. And also, Hwan Hee, I was wrong about him too. He was able to pull it off in the end. And so I feel like it came down to aesthetic, which put me over the edge, but I was impressed by the performance, and the score reflects that. The EXO Love Me Right teams were up next, and though only G Group is shown for now, during the interim check, G Group vocals and rap impressed the Masters better than the K Group. Lee Ho-Tech was surprised, but he really shouldn't have been, since G Group had been killing it since the first day in the practice room. One Star started to meticulously take apart their performance and talk about how things were overdone in Lee Ho-Tech's delivery, which is very much the same as when I say it's indulgent. In the actual performance, G Group started an 8.6 and rose until it landed at an 8.8. The whole performance really was without issue. Wumuti was a good starter, but editing helped Jay overpower invisibility. Wumuti, he may benefit from practicing his expressions more and putting an element of mental game or acting in there, because at times it didn't come across as sincere in the performance, and it appeared like it was uncomfortable for him to hold like a smile sometimes. I think Sun Hang-bin will have probably no problem getting a point advantage in the killing part, since he seems to embody everything more naturally. But overall, I think it was a great performance. Unfortunately, Mnet started K-Group's version, but it ended on a cliffhanger. And with that, we come to the end of this recap, breakdown, and prediction video. I really have nothing more left to say on the matter. And, right now I'm just eagerly awaiting to see how wrong I will be next week. So I guess that's pretty much it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. Let me know what you think in the comment box down below. Finally, if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video.